Hey guys, subscribe for daily content, and if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review slash knife overview to share with you guys. This is the Microtech Hera. This is a new, I'm going to call it kind of a medium-sized OTF offering from Microtech Knives, and there's definitely some interesting things to talk about here. Thank you so much to Christian for sending it in for review. I'll point out that this guy right here has a signature back here in the pocket clip. This is part of a pre-production proof run. You can see there it's number 100. Other than that, it is identical as far as I can tell to a production version of this knife, so we're going to go ahead and proceed with that in mind. Thanks so much to my generous patrons who are supporting me right now. There's a link for Patreon right down below, and please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. Let's go ahead and get a measurement of this guy. Overall length of the Microtech Hera is coming in at about 7.5 inches. It's really close to the size of the Troodon, the standardized Troodon. If not, I can't remember if it's identical or not. Blade length is definitely over 3 inches. Absolutely. It's about 3 1/8. Cutting edge is about 2.85. Mixing up my measurements there, I know. Sorry about that. Let's do some size comparisons up against the Ontario Rat Model 1 and its little brother, the Rat Model 2. Very similar, a little bit longer than the Rat 2. How about up against the Spyderco? We have to move the bigger guy first. The Spyderco PM2 and the Spyderco Para 3. There you go. Closer to the size of the Para 3 for sure, just a little bit longer. And last but not least, how about up against the Benchmade Reptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue, and the Benchmade Bug-Eye. I think it's identical in size or overall length to the Benchmade Bug-Eye, about 7.5 inches. And you know what? We'll do a couple more just because I do own a couple of Microtechs, and I should have thought about this before I got going. I do have this. These are bigger, but I have the Microtech Scarab 2. So we'll put it up against the Scarab. There you go. The Scarab coming in, I think it's 9 1/4 or 9 1/2. And then the Microtech Combat Troodon, which is also coming in at, I think, something like 9 1/4. So there you go. Okay. Let's go ahead and do carry profile. Thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. You can see here it's really not that thick. It's pretty thin, but the pocket clip creates this enormous excessive thickness, right? Well, I mean, for the rest of it. Truthfully, the combination, like if we're going to compare with the Spyderco Para 3, the maximum height of the ball bearing is probably right in line with the maximum height of the pocket clip on the Spyderco Para 3. Here's the stock clip on the PM2, which is probably raised just about as high as the aftermarket clip I've got on the Para 3. So, you know, the pocket clip just makes it seem like excessively thick, but honestly it's not really that much thicker than something like a Para 3 with the clip, but it does make its presence known a lot. It seems very like the pocket clip is yelling at you. You know, there's a lot of clip here, so I just want to make sure and point that out. Okay, length and height up against the PM2 and Para 3. OTFs are generally pretty easy because they're kind of just rectangles, right? They generally carry pretty easily, and this guy's no exception. We have, it's thinner, it's going to be shorter, it's nowhere near as tall, right, if you compare with the hump and the blade of the PM2 and Para 3. So yeah, it shouldn't be that big of a deal. Materials, what are we looking at here? We are looking at, this is going to, according to the card, we have M390, which is probably going to be the case. I see 204P, like for example, my Combat Troodon is 204P. I see M390, which those are analogs to each other. And then sometimes I see LMAX. If you go to a website and you're taking a look at Microtech knives and it doesn't list the steel, or it's like we can't really say what the steel is because they rotate. They generally rotate between 204P and M390. And if you're watching this in the future, they might have some newer thing thrown in there. I don't know if they're going to mess with S35, or I'm sorry, S45EN or something like M398. Every now and then I see one labeled as LMAX. LMAX is fine. There's no issue with LMAX. It's a little tougher. It won't hold an edge quite as long as M390. It's a little tougher, a little easier to sharpen, not quite as corrosion resistant. I don't have a problem with it. This particular one is M390, so there you go. The handle scales are the typical aircraft aluminum or 6061 T6. The pocket clip is titanium. Definitely titanium. So that's what we're looking at for materials. And then internally there will be a steel chassis on the inside. Let's go ahead and weigh it here real quick. Weight of the Hera coming in at 3.1 ounces. I don't have a problem with that at all. The ratios are pretty darn good on this guy. So the biggest carry hindrance is not really even the part of carry. It's just like when you're gripping it, it's the pocket clip. But the rest of it, pretty easy to carry in and out of the pocket. The ball bearing does in some ways make that easier and in other ways not. But I mean, when it's actually in your pocket, it's going to carry pretty easily. We cannot do a hardware check because we are looking at proprietary tri-wing screws. Yes, you can get a tool for these. I don't think that, well, you shouldn't have to purchase a tool. It would be nice if they all had screws like on the new Scarab. But in this case, you will have to purchase a tool or send it back into them if you really want to take it apart. I have very rarely, in fact, I've never actually had to take apart a Microtech OTF. Once I had a Lightning OTF get a rock stuck in it, and I had to take it apart. So if you're outside and you're working in dirt and debris and stuff like that, and you get something lodged in there, right? If you're really going to take this thing out and use it, maybe you'll have to take it apart. But you know, as long as I've been carrying OTFs and just using them for general things, and I'm not taking my knives out and beating on them outside, getting them dirty and stuff like that. So your mileage may vary. You probably won't have to deal with it, but it's still kind of like, just why can't we have torques, right? Okay, is there anything else I need to check there? I don't think so. So this is the newest, I believe, the newest offering from Microtech. The first thing that I'll say about it is the firing switch feels, so with knives like the Scarab 2, the Combat Troodon, I'm going to throw the Dirac Delta in there. The Microtech Ultratech, right? The larger OTFs that they have. I know the Ultratech's a skinny guy, but it's still 8.5 inches overall. Those seem to have the best firing power. And then when we talk about the Troodon and the UTX 85, which I've reviewed all of this stuff, they are, you know, it's enough to fire the blade out, but it feels anywhere from 50% to about 80% the firing power, right? So whenever I handle a smaller Microtech, I just kind of brace myself for less than impressive firing power versus these bigger guys, which have, you know, very powerful firing action. This guy actually has pretty significant firing power. And a lot of the smaller OTFs that I've handled from Microtech have been brand new. And I think it's just, they just had a smaller spring or whatever. This guy, I don't know if there's actually something different, or if they're using a more robust spring, or if they just, I don't know. The firing switch feels a little bit smoother. It doesn't have so much tension where I'm like, oh, but it's pow, nice. It's clicky, it's snappy, it's ready to go. And the play is so minimal. There's almost no, I'm gonna put it up against the most solid one I have is the Troodon, or I'm sorry, the Scarab. It's about exactly the same, right? I mean, Microtech, when they do it right, they do it right. But this has better firing power and a smoother action, I guess, or when you're using the switch, right? The switch feels easier to actuate than any of the other smaller OTFs that I've handled from Microtech's line. So that's good. I like that. That's what you want. You don't want it to feel sluggish, because that means if you get a teeny tiny piece of, you know, pocket lint in there, that it's going to slow it down or it's going to misfire. And there's nothing more frustrating than having a really expensive OTF misfire. By the way, these are available if you're still watching at 8 minutes. These are available, and I will link them right down below. You can definitely get the Microtech Hera right now, or at least at the time of this upload. So that's nice. I do like the action. Ergonomically, you have, I mean, with OTFs, you kind of, it's the same kind of thing, right? You have like an area up here where they can, because of how they're shaped and the chassis, right? You don't see a lot of like emphasis on ergonomic lines with OTFs. This guy's got a little bit. We got some frag texturing up here, right? And then you got some lines in here, and you got some more frag texturing down there. Something that really bothers me with this guy is how sharp the edges are. I don't understand. The Combat Troodon is nicely knocked down. The Scarab is super super chamfered, you know. So people are going to be like, oh, well, you're supposed to, it's a work knife. You're supposed to be wearing gloves. It doesn't matter that this is their biggest, most robust, most heavy duty OTF that they make, the Scarab. Look at this. These corners are all nicely knocked down. They got the grip stuff in it. They got it. This guy is meant to be absolutely beaten on. Why are the corners so, and when I say that, I mean like this edge right here. This is sharp. This area right here is almost scalloped out, which is that's what's making that edge so sharp, right? So that seems like really unnecessary. And, you know, on their website, or not on their website. I actually read this description on Blade HQ, that this model bridges the gap between EDC and tactical. When I think of EDC, I think of a casual kind of like, this is something that I'm carrying with me. I'm probably not wearing my gloves, right? I'm probably just getting it out. Oh, I need to open a package or something, right? So yeah, every single time that I fire this, there's some edge or corner on this that I feel. The edges of the button, this is the most comfortable firing button that Microtech does, and it's probably because it's so wide, right? But it's the same kind of deal. Well, truthfully, this guy on the Combat Troodon feels a little bit more knocked down. The edges on this, and maybe it'll wear down a little bit over time, but the edges on the firing button are also very sharp. The whole knife is pretty, it's got a lot of sharp edges to it. So sitting here and playing with it for just a little bit, it's kind of, everything wears out quickly. So I'm not super duper happy about that. I can't say it's the most comfortable thing to hold. The combination of it being a short handle, you can definitely get a full 4-finger purchase on this guy. But you're cramped. At least my hand is definitely, you know, confined to just the front and back of the knife. Sharp edges, and you can, that pocket clip I'm not going to say is sharp, but it's there. You can feel it, right? That ball bearing makes itself known. So, not the most comfortable thing in the world, but then again, you're probably just going to be using it for lighter stuff. If you do go out, and you know, if you're wondering, are OTFs ultra durable? Yeah, X-Ring has proven that they're pretty durable. I suggest you go watch X-Ring's durability tests on Microtech knives, right? So yeah, I mean, if you're going to take it out and pound on it, you're definitely going to feel it more. And in that situation, I would recommend wearing gloves. Absolutely. The blade is gorgeous, and I love the double fullers. I think that looks really nice. As per usual, Microtech doing a great job of making that grind go perfectly down the center. That is something that drives me insane on other, you know, like when knife manufacturers make a dagger ground blade. When that line doesn't go down the center, it just looks like garbage. This looks great. Microtech does a great job with this. This is stonewashed. This is how you can expect the finish to look. That is different than Apocalyptic, different than Satin, right? Then they have their two-tones and their DLCs and stuff like that. And then they have their signature series where you can get by different, you know, the bronze finish, and you can get, actually, I don't think the bronze finish is specific to signature series. I think you can get the only versions of this knife that I've seen are the one that you're seeing right now, right? I mean, I'm sure you'll see different versions of this in the future, but lots of different stuff. Sharp on both sides, which is generally something I mean, I know there are folding daggers out there, but usually in the common production world, you're generally only going to see this on OTFs, right? So this is an OTF, automatic knife, switchblade, all of those terms apply. It is definitely over the legal limit in some places, you know, that that allow OTFs. And then it also is a dagger ground blade, which can potentially make this like triple illegal wherever you are. So you have to make sure, check your local laws, right? Check the dagger stuff if you're going to pick something like this up. But yeah, the blade glides in and out easily. It doesn't feel like there's any drag, which might be contributing to the feeling of very snappy action. Right. So, you know, again, let me emphasize, the firing button is sharp, but it's smooth. It doesn't feel like there's a lot of friction or grinding going on in here. Right. So I definitely love the blade. The edge is done nicely. There's a flat, of course, that runs right down the middle. It's not an excessively thick blade. I mean, we didn't measure it. I'm not going to put the calipers on there. It's probably something like 90 thousandths, right? Still not a lot of room to drop down towards the cutting edge. So the edge isn't going to be an absolute laser beam, but it definitely is thin enough to be able to slice into packaging or whatever it is that you're cutting. And then you definitely have a tip that is going to accentuate puncturing performance, right? Nice thing about dagger ground blade is you can use one edge. You can be dedicated to one edge for EDC. And then if that edge goes dull, you can simply flip it over and start using the other edge. So you have effectively double the potential edge retention of whatever the steel composition is on the knife, right? The downside is that you cannot use your thumb to brace against the blade if you need to do some type of precision cutting or anything like that. You have to put your thumb up here. Anyways, moving on here, I don't know that there's a whole lot more that I can say. There's no lanyard thing. I mean, you could attach a lanyard to the pocket clip if you wanted to. The pocket clip does look cool. I like how it looks. I don't like these ball bearing clips. Yeah, it glides over the seam smoothly, but it also pinches really hard, and it's frustrating. Have you ever done that where you pull and the pocket clip comes out to the point where and then it gets stuck on the ball bearing and your fingers slip off of it? Sometimes it's just enough force where you pull and then it gets stuck for a second, so you keep pulling, but it's enough for you to slide off the knife, but the knife comes out of your pocket and then it falls down to the ground. Those ball bearing, I've had that happen more with the ball bearing clips than anything else, but that could be just that could just be me being stupid. I just don't like these. I want it to be, I want it to be something like this. This will not fray up your pants, though, as the description says on at least Blade HQ. Smooth aluminum, the ball bearing, right? So if that's an issue for you and that's you're bent on correcting that, then there you go. Like I said, the signature will probably not be there on your production version of this knife unless you have a signature series version of this, in which case I would imagine the signature would be there. We have a couple more tri-wing screws right here. The knife is going to carry about like this, which is perfectly acceptable. I feel like the clip is a bit too long. I kind of wish that it was a little bit shorter, but okay, I don't know that it would necessarily fix the, presence issue, but all right. Okay, so I don't know that there's a whole lot more that I can say here. The lockup is really good. This is going to be just as durable as other Microtechs. Highlights, it fires smoother and harder than other smaller or medium-sized OTFs that I've handled from Microtech. Definitely the fit and finish front, this thing is just immaculate. There are no fit and finish issues on this knife at all, and that's what I expect from Microtech. Especially really expensive USA made. These are expensive, guys. $423 at the time of this recording. The Troodon, which is, in my opinion, overpriced, comes in base price $393, right? The Combat Troodon, I think, is $480 up to about $525 for the standard versions. The Scarab, $525, $550, something like that. Dirac and Dirac Delta are some of the less expensive ones. Same with the Ultratech, right? So if you're gonna, it's hard because this is a better size. It's a better overall length for a lot of people. The Ultratech is going to be like if I was going to recommend something that I liked better in the Microtech line, I would say the Ultratech or the Dirac Delta. Well, the problem with those two is that they're longer, especially the Dirac Delta. But they are much less expensive. Much less expensive. I think the Ultratech comes in at like $285. Dirac Delta is coming in at something like $365 to $380, right? I don't understand why this is so much money. I don't get that. I find myself saying that oftentimes about Microtech. There may be, manufacturing, something that they do in manufacturing, or these may just cost a lot more money to make, elements that I'm not aware of. Okay, fine. Maybe I don't know. That aside, competition, right? If we're going to talk about Guardian Tactical or Heretic knives, competition is fierce. What is it? The Manticore E? Whatever the medium-sized Manticore is from Heretic knives and the Guardian Tactical Recon 35 are way less money, especially the Guardian Tactical. That thing comes in, the Recon 35 comes in at $285. Yeah, and they're roughly that same. Like if you want the wider, I know that the Ultratech is thinner. If you want the wider handle, the wider blade, you just don't want it to be as long. You want it to be about this size, 7.5 to 8 inches, something like that. yeah, those knives are less expensive. And yeah, you might be confined to LMAX, but you have to ask yourself, I mean, here's the difference between this and the Manticore E and the Recon 35. You get the special clip, the titanium clip with the ball bearings. You really have to want that. And then probably M390/204P steel. As compared to the Recon 35, because I can't remember the price of the Microtech, the Heretic Manticore E off the top of my head. If that is the medium-sized one, I can't remember with their codes. Is it worth another $150 to you to go with this? It's hard. I'm not saying that this should be priced at $285. No. This feels like a $350. It does feel really nice. This does feel overall a bit more premium. It's just like my gut instinct, right? A bit more premium than the Recon 35. 325, 350-ish, right? Maybe. 423, I just don't understand it. Maybe there are elements that I don't understand, but again, it's the competition, right? It's what else is out there. Other US-made OTFs sporting nearly the same materials. In the case of the Recon 35, unmatched firing action, right? Recon 35 probably have a little more play in the blade, not much, a tiny bit. But the firing action is unbelievably smooth and the knife is much more comfortable. So this is neat, and I always love seeing what's out there for Microtech knives. It's just really, really hard. It's hard for me to understand exactly what I'm getting here for $150 more than something like the Recon 35. Fit and finish, again, excellent. Overall presentation function, excellent. Some sharp corners, awkward pocket clip, right? Proprietary hardware. So there you go. Those are my thoughts on the Microtech Hera. If you really, really, really love this, right, and the stuff that I've said, you know, it's like I always say with my reviews, you pick and choose the parts of my review that make sense to you, and then you make your decision for yourself. But that's what I have to say about it. Christian, thank you so much for sending this in for me to take a look at. I was really curious about this one, and I'm really thankful that you decided to lend me yours. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.